Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Triple Tap. Well, we've got it all happening tonight. We've got technical difficulties, we got wrong links, we got everything going on tonight, guys. I just realized that you couldn't have seen that video because I didn't even share my screen. So it will be up on the replay, but I'm sure most of you who've watched this before have seen our little intro video. So I do apologize. If you could imagine the type of day that I've had today, I've got it all going on. So I do apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode number 57, it's all about the unacceptable content for children. And we've got a slightly different tap tonight because you'll notice that I don't have any co-hosts with me, and it's going to be jam-packed and full of questions, and I want to get the most out of my guests this evening. So in just a moment, I'll be bringing on three very important people who we've interviewed before individually. However, because of the nature of the work that we've all been doing in this space, we decided to bring them together and really talk about the unacceptable content for children that is being taught and shown in our schools and our libraries around the nation. You'll probably agree with me that what we are seeing at the moment being rolled out is nothing like we've seen or experienced before. At least not at the speed and the veracity and the brazenness that it is. There is definitely an agenda at play, and we'll talk more about that tonight. There are also definitely solutions, just like the province of New Brunswick did, and calls to action that we can all partake in if we want to make change in this nation. And I believe that many, many people do want change. And I equally believe that there are many, many people that want to continue to roll out and be part of this evil agenda taking place, which is not in the best interest for us nor our children. Before we get started, in just a moment, I'm going to pose a few questions, and I'd love your participation in the chat box to these questions. Tonight is all about being interactive and also asking your questions via the chat box so that we can pose them to the panel for answering. We'll get to our panel in just a moment. First off, let me ask you a serious question, and one that we posed on a recent flyer in our Unacceptable Content for Children's Action Group. Do you know what is being taught to children in schools and in the books in libraries? Do you know that children are using kitty litter in the classroom, just like cats do? Are you okay with 2-year-olds being exposed to adult genitalia and 4-year-olds having sexual partners? Drop your comments in the chat if you're appalled at some of the things that you're going to be hearing tonight. Are you okay with 6-year-olds being taught how to masturbate? Are you okay with 8-year-olds learning about anal sex from books? 10-year-olds urinating in kitty litter in the classroom. And yes, this is actually happening around Australia. Are you okay with 10-year-old girls asking daddy about his erections and ejaculation habits for homework? 12-year-olds seeing pictures of rape in comic books? And are you okay with 14-year-olds being suspended from school for voicing their opinion about gender? And what about 16-year-olds failing assignments for not answering transgender questions as required? By now, I hope I've got your attention, ladies and gentlemen, because in tonight's episode, we're going to be speaking with Tine McDonald, Bernard Gaynor, and Kim Robertson about the unacceptable content for children. You might be thinking that there's not much that can be done. However, I want to assure you that collectively, if we all choose to step up and take even one small action step in the right direction, then we can most definitely make change for the better. So keep your faith and hope in humanity alive, because there are still good people out there fighting for our freedom and our rights and those of our children and the next generation. I'm one of them, and I'd like to introduce you to three more. Tine McDonald, who we interviewed in episode number 47, has been a school principal for over 40 years and is the Minister for Education for the Birigubba Sovereign Nation. Tine, along with a small group, took the message about the unacceptable content for children in the form of visual images to her local council meeting in Mackay. Bernard Gaynor, who we interviewed in episode number 48, is a father fighting for the protection of our children and challenging the classification of some of the books you're going to hear about tonight. Kim Robertson, who we interviewed in episode number 52, is an ex-QPS employee and was instrumental in helping the Birigubba Nation get off the ground and is actively working with that nation still today as their Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister alongside Tine. She is also part of our TAP executive team, and we all work together in the Unacceptable Content for Children Action Group. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to bring onto the call tonight Tine, Bernard, and Kim. So, guys, turn on your camera and let's get into the interview. There we are. There's Kim. Hello, Kim. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Ames. How are you?
And I'm very well, thank you. And Bernard, how are you?
Great to be on with you. Thank you very much, Ainsley, for that introduction.
Excellent. And last but by no means least, Tines, how are you today?
I'm good. Can I just correct that? I wasn't a principal for over 40 years, but I was in education for over 40 years.
Excellent. Well, you're very instrumental in the education industry, so thank you for correcting my little mistake there. Look, it's been one of those days, I think, for mistake after mistake. So as you guys know, that's not like me. I set myself some very high standards, but today we've had it all going on with stuff at Parliament House and all sorts of good things going on. So we're in for a real treat tonight. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love you to be interactive in the chat tonight. And if you have any questions for either of our panelists as we go through tonight's episode, I definitely would love you to put your questions in there, and I'll be answering them or giving them to the panel to comment on as we go through. But we're going to get underway because we got a lot of questions for you guys tonight. I hope you're ready. And we're going to start with you, Kim. I know you're just like me. We both don't have children. So why is this cause so important to you to fight for?
Yeah, thanks, Ames. So every single one of us are touched by children. Children carry the innocence for all of us. We've all been children. We all have parents. We all have nieces, nephews, friends who have children. These children are our future. And what we do today is going to affect them tomorrow. And what is being rolled out at the moment is not a good future for them or the following generations after them. So it is of paramount importance that we get this right for them so that they can actually live in a world without so much pressure, so much manipulation, and so much steering in a direction which is not normal. It's just not normal.
Yeah. And before we get underway in our further questioning, I just want to ask each of you, Bernie, as a father, why is this important to you to fight for this cause?
Look, Ainsley, I'm a father. I've got 9 children, and it's very important to me that our children are able to be taught the truth. They're able to identify good, and they're also able to identify evil. And in fact, what is happening is that our children have been taught that evil things are in fact good. They've been exposed to evil things and given the impression that those things are good, and it will destroy their happiness, it will destroy their lives, it will destroy their ability to form strong family relations in the future. I want to hand on to my children a better future, which is why I'm fighting this, because what is happening in Australia at the moment is very alarming. My generation has failed completely. We're not handing on something better to our children, and I'm doing everything I can to change that.
Excellent, thank you. And Teens, as someone who's been in the education industry for over 40 years, we can see that this topic is very important and close to your heart. So can you tell us why you're fighting so hard for this to stop?
I love kids. I was of the firm belief that you couldn't teach a child adequately unless you loved that child. And I'm a mother and a grandmother, and there's nothing I won't do to save my grandchildren from what is happening in the schools. There are no absolutes these days. Right and wrong, like Bernie said, it's all muddled up in their heads, male and female. How are they going to grow up and be able to make confident and realistic choices in life unless we teach them this? And I wouldn't teach some of the things that came across through the curriculum. And yeah, having seen the education side and having grandchildren in school, I can't stop. I can't stop.
Yeah.
I just can't.
The mind boggles for me. I guess I grew up in a bit of a different era as well, but I noticed when I went into a hardware store the other day to get some paint, and I saw what I thought was a man or a young man, but turned out to be a girl. But the pronoun, they had a pronoun behind their name, him, he. And I looked closer and I thought, is that a guy or is that a girl? And I was very confused because it definitely was a girl, and the number of telling signs, but it definitely was a girl, but they wanted to be, their pronouns were him, he. So it was very confusing. So we're going to talk more about this stuff tonight. But I'm going to throw this one to you, Kim. We've seen an increase recently on the gender agenda. Why do you think that this is? And do you believe it has anything to do with the destruction of the family unit?
I do. So a lot of people think that this is really coming out, particularly a lot of attention with it in the last few months in particular. This agenda started many, many, many years ago. I remember in the late 1990s, early 2000s, there was some legislation that was being passed in the States at the time, which was making or trying to legalize pedophilia. So this has been a long, slow nibble at the pie. And if you have a look at it, it starts off with the family breakdown, the introduction of television in the 60s, really. So it starts to distract people from having dinners together, going out and using that time for play, etc. So over time, degradation of the family unit, increase in prices, both parents have to work. So now the child doesn't have that stable home life. What used to be family units staying together, working through difficult situations together, sees us now in a situation where the divorce rate is so high that most children have a single parent family unit rather than the mother and the father figure. The introduction of manipulation and indoctrination into the schools, a slow but sure piece of the pie over many, many years that we haven't even noticed. And I mean, we as in the world population hasn't even noticed. So the gradual increase has now got to this tipping point where it is really being exposed because it's in our face now. Nobody can ignore it anymore. The whole gender thing is a push to confuse children, to take the masculinity away from the man as being the protector of that family unit, to increase the masculinity of the women, if you like, because they have to act as the mother and the father. And then the indoctrination of the children so that they become very confused at a very, very young age, so that they are accepting behaviors which are not normal and a child should never have to do.
Yep. Before we delve into the intricacies of some of the books and some of the things that we're going to be talking with Bernard and Tine about, Kim, I'd just like you to briefly please explain, there are directives for guidelines from the United Nations, the WHO and UNESCO. Can you talk a little bit about what they are and how they're rolling out, just in brief?
Yeah, sure. So the United Nations has a document which is called the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education. Anybody can look this up. Now, there is much content in there. It really goes into a lot of detail. It covers off the gender situation where nobody knows what gender they are. It gives a intimate citizenship briefing, which is just appalling. It talks about how useful it is to introduce the concept of intimate citizenship relating to the sexual rights from a social science perspective. And it goes through morality issues, emotional issues, sexual behavior, the context of all of this. And at a first glance, when you read it, you think, well, that's not so bad. You know, they don't really put any age just in that part there. When you actually start to break it down is when it becomes most alarming. Now, I've had a read through that document, and I can tell you when you really read it for what it is horrifying and it is sickening. There is no other way to explain it. It goes hand in hand with this document. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment here. This is really important because this actually shows the direct documents from the WHO. So if we have a look at this, it's standards for sexuality education in Europe, 0 to 4 years old, 0 to 4. Okay, everyone needs to really get that in their minds. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation, discovery of own body and own genitals, the fact that enjoyment of physical closeness is a normal part of everyone's life. These are babies, and they are talking about masturbation. Now, don't think that because it says Europe here, that it's not rolling out across the world. It is. And that states it in the UN document that I just was reading about for the citizenship sexuality. So if we go to the next one, 5 to 8 years old, teaches 5-year-old kids about sex. It states that people show love and care for other people in different ways, including kissing, hugging, touching, and sometimes through sexual behavior. 5 to 8 years old. I could not even imagine thinking about any of this when I was 5 to 8 years old. If we have a look at the next one. Sorry, that's the same one. Again, you can all see World Health Organization. This is straight from their documentation. This is just covering off on the other ones. Curiosity regarding one's own and other bodies. It goes on and on. So this is the information that the United Nations, the WHO, and UNESCO are very complicit in this whole rollout, issuing to the rest of the world, to our education departments, including the gender agenda, for teaching within our schools, in our libraries, and in our everyday life. They are normalizing pedophilia from a very, very young age. They are teaching children that it is okay, and it is certainly not okay. Our own criminal codes say that grooming is an offence. This is grooming 100%. There is no getting away from it.
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to move across to teens now. Teens, what have you seen that is happening in schools right now, and how has this changed over time compared to, say, when we were at school? I'm sure we were similar eras.
Well, it's totally different now to what it was when we were at school. But I did keep some links and that were being given to year 9 and 10 students before I retired, and they were horrendous. Links for sexting, how to sext your friends. I want to make you come. I want you inside of me. Sexting games. You can be the dominant one for the day. You choose what you want to do. And these were all just there for the kids to click on. It's just the books, obviously the books, which Bernard will fill out a bit more later. But gee whiz, in the 70s, I remember the books that I put away that I wouldn't let the kids write. And man, they'd be nothing compared to what's out there today. And the whole system has changed, that children can go to school and be told, well, even preschoolers, that it doesn't matter what your sexual genitals tell you you're whatever you choose to be. And I did say this on my last interview, I had my assistant regional director ring me because I'd responded to a principal's survey and said that I'd have no part in choosing any other stupid pronouns. I was quite happy with the one I'd had all my life. And I was told I had to keep my principal's hat on and just not take any notice of what was going on around me. And I said, as long as my granddaughter has any chance of going into year one and being told just because she's got a vagina doesn't mean she's a girl, I will not shut my mouth. And we have to stand up because these kids are being totally confused from the time that they walk into the classroom. They don't know who they are, what they are. And a lot of parents, like Kim said, they're working, they're not engaged. Parents, you need to be involved with that classroom. You need to be involved with that teacher. You need to be involved with that school. You get one shot at bringing up that child, one shot only. This is it.
So teens, how can parents find out what is going on in the classroom, or can they even find out?
It's not easy. It's not easy. Most of the letters that they get home have been whitewashed, and they need to take them in and ask for the details. They won't be told. They will not be told. Generally, they are given websites where you can't find the actual material. I would suggest that parents get a list of books, which I think Bernard will have tonight. If not, we'll post them. But go into your child's school library and look through the books. Go into your child's classroom, look through the desk, look through all of their books because it's across every subject, and then ask your child, are there class sets kept anywhere? Because some of these handbooks they are told they are not allowed to take home. So you need to be involved. And don't worry, the teachers will try and bluff you and tell you that you can't be. You can be. This is your child. This is your child. So go to P&C meetings. Make sure you go. Get a group of you together and write letters to the principal about things that are happening. There are lots of ways to get involved.
Excellent. Thanks, Tine. I know we got lots and lots more questions coming up, guys. So Bernard, we'll move across to you now because I know you've been very instrumental in challenging some of the books that have come out. One of the books that has been the big talk of the town is a book called Welcome to Sex. But before that, there was a book called Gender Queer, which also came out. Now, look, I just want to reiterate to all our listeners that we are not against gay people. Like, this is not a gay bashing session at all, but this is more exposing what is being put in these books and being taught to young children. And I know, Bernard, you've been very instrumental in challenging the Gender Queer book. So what is the current situation on that book? And is that book the worst that you've seen?
Sure. Thanks, Ainsley. So Gender Queer is the most controversial book probably in the world. Certainly in the United States, it has been the subject of many challenges and it's been banned in a number of places, but it is not by any means the worst book at all. The current situation on it in Australia is that the classification board gave it an unrestricted rating in April. I challenged that. And the Classification Review Board on the 20th of July decided to give the book an unrestricted rating again. And what I might do, just so people can see, is share my screen. And I'll just put this up here. So Gender Queer is written by Mike Kobe. What you can see down the bottom there is the text from the Classification Board's report of April. So I've actually blurred out part of the image, as you can see. But the board report says that it shows a bearded male with an erection kneeling before a smaller male figure, cupping his hand beneath the smaller figure's penis. They are words from an Australian government report for an award-winning children's book. Unfortunately, in July, the review board decided that that image is not of a child. Now, they didn't say how they worked out that that image does not show a child. They just said that because it's not a child, it is okay to have in books unrestricted in Australia. So I intend to take that to court I believe that it is a child. The author herself, in her own legal filings, has said that that book undisputably shows a child. And I intend to take that to court, and hopefully the paperwork for that will be lodged by Thursday. So if you want to keep up to date with that, please check out my website. I'm not there yet, but stay tuned, because in the next couple of days, I hope to be in court challenging this decision, because it is just completely unacceptable for government officials to decide that that image of a child is not a child. And what should shock people is that one of the people who made that decision is a teacher in Queensland. So this is what is going on. They are whitewashing what is happening. They are saying that that image does not show a child. We all know it does, and I intend to challenge that.
Excellent, Bernie. And we'll give our listeners an opportunity to how you can get involved to support Bernie in that fight in the courts, because as we know, it is not cheap going into these courts these days when you want to fight these things. So we definitely want to support Bernard in that. We'll put that link up very soon. Got a question from one of our listeners, guys. Maybe any one of you can answer this. The statement says, tell us your phobias and we will tell you what you're afraid of. This quote is so accurate in the context of today. What's your views on teaching kids to think critically? It seems that every kid gets a prize in today's world. So we might start with you, teens, being in the education industry. This one seems valid for you.
Well, I did do a radio interview a couple of years ago on this, and everyone's a winner. No one comes first, no one comes last. And I think it's just mad, because you've got children in a classroom who struggle academically, but they might be a great swimmer. That's where they get their self-esteem and their confidence. Kids have got to be allowed to win, and kids have got to learn to lose. It's just crazy. You can have over competition, of course you can, but everything in moderation. And this is something that kids need. I know, I used to love spelling. I still do. Ask him. And I was always the spelling champion. I loved it, and it really boosted me on. So there were other things. Put me on a race, I'd be the last one every time. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. But everyone has their area that can boost their confidence and their self-esteem.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember in high school when I used to love reading books, and I was doing literature, and I wasn't the smartest kid in school, but I wasn't the dumbest either. And I remember the literature teacher said, I think you better sit the English exam because I don't think you're going to pass the literature exam. So of course I did sit the English exam, and I did pass the literature exam. So, there you go. And, I've been in business for nearly 20 years. So it definitely didn't make any difference whether I passed or failed. Okay, so Bernard, what other books are in the local libraries? I know you've been in the libraries and checking out some of these books, and some of them are quite bad and they're in different sections. So just for the purpose of our listeners here today, what other books are you seeing in the local libraries across Australia?
Yeah, Ainsley, there are thousands of pornographic books in libraries across Australia. People really need to go and check out what is in the local library. Go and look at the graphic novel section. Graphic novel is a library term. It means picture book. But our children are being given picture books of pornographic material. Just as an example, I'll just share the screen again.
Yeah, sure.
This book here, The Boys Volume 2, this has been classified unrestricted. Again, this is imagery from this book. It is available for children to borrow. And as you can see from the government report, in the board's opinion, the presentations of themes and sex in this way is not exploitative, offensive, or gratuitous. Now, in the following page, this guy says that he threatens to kill that woman in that depiction. Not exploitative, offensive, or gratuitous in libraries across Australia. This book currently has not been classified in libraries across Australia. This is imagery from it. Again, I've redacted part of it. You can see people snorting cocaine off the back of a stripper, available for children to borrow in libraries. Here you can see Brisbane City Council Library right now. I took this screenshot just before this presentation, this interview. That book is available for children in Brisbane City Council libraries. and it will be in many, many other libraries across Australia. This is another series, 4 series actually. There's probably about 100 books in these. Ken Akamatsu is the author's name. That is a picture of him there. In relation to child pornography cartoons, that is a quote from Ken Akamatsu. Actual children suffering and crying is not acceptable, but manga doesn't involve actual children. So there are no actual victims. This guy has been made very rich by local governments in Australia buying his books. This is an example of one of his cartoons, I Love You, Love Hina. It's an example of one of his cartoons available right now for children to borrow in Australia. Another book series, Nagima, in libraries across Australia. UQ Holder. He is drawing children engaged in sexually explicit activity. This is in libraries for children on children's shelves across Australia. Again, Brisbane City Council this evening, just before this interview, I took the screenshot of the books. Ken Akamatsu's books are very dangerous. There are thousands of them on shelves across Australia. So I'll leave that there. There's just an example of some of the books in library shelves. I think it will shock people what is on these shelves. And I cannot give you an exhaustive list of books to look for because there are so many of them. There are literally thousands of books with content like that in libraries, public libraries across Australia. As for school libraries, they are probably there. It is much more difficult to understand what's in school libraries, but parents need to go and check their school libraries too.
Wow. Guys, I don't know about you, but that is just absolutely shocking. Bernard, I'm just going to ask you one last question. What can people do about these books in council libraries? Like, can the council librarians who are letting these books go out to the children, are they not responsible for that? Can they not be prosecuted?
They should be prosecuted, and I want to see that happen. It is going to take time because Queensland Police are very reluctant. I don't know why, but they are. But what parents can do, and what I've been able to do, is get books, a large number of books removed. So, for instance, in Scenic Rim, which is Beaudesert in southeast Queensland, I've managed to get probably 80% of their graphic novels removed from Beaudesert Library just by visiting it in one afternoon. So there are people in council who do something about it. Other councils are far more difficult to deal with, like, for instance, Logan City Council refuses to even admit it's got a problem. And librarians, I don't want to say all librarians because it's not the case, but there are some librarians and in fact the professional body, peak body representing librarians is a massive problem because that organisation and a number of librarians who support it are actively working to keep these books inside libraries. So, for instance, this Australian Library Information Association went to the classification board and argued that Genderqueer, the first book that I showed tonight, should be kept on shelves and should be available for children. So there are librarians plotting and scheming to prevent parents from having these books removed. But if you can write letters to council, you can succeed in getting them removed sometimes. The other thing to do in Queensland is write to the Office of Fair Trading because these books are not classified in almost all circumstances. And by doing that, I was able to get volumes 1, 3, and 5 of The Boys banned. So I've proven now that Logan City Council, Brisbane City Council, and a number of other councils were lending illegal pornographic books to children in Queensland. As I showed with that other imagery, the classification board has problems itself. It is marking unrestricted books that really are highly pornographic. That's a separate issue, and we're going to have to get political action to change that. But in a nutshell, go to your councils and complain. Go to the Office of Fair Trading in Queensland or the equivalent consumer body in other states and complain. And things will happen. If enough people complain, these books will go.
Excellent, thank you. We'll jump back to you, teens. Are you seeing the same sort of books in the school libraries as well?
I can't really speak for the school libraries because I don't have access to them anymore, but we're certainly seeing them in Mackay. Mackay, we had our library action group at the library in Mackay today. They don't even have an adult graphic novel section. It's all in the junior fiction. So it's just open slather for anyone. So I can't speak, but parents need to get into the libraries and find out.
What sort of feedback have you had from parents from, say, different schools? Have you had any feedback from parents?
Yeah, a lot. I've had a lot since my interview with Jason Miles. Morani Primary School, this is a new one. A Year 4 child went home and told his brother, that's a 9-year-old, and told his brother that he can't cream yet. He wouldn't discuss it with the family. Mum wanted to talk to him about it. He just couldn't talk about it. But then he told his family that he's bisexual because he likes both boys and girls. Well, they're meant to like both boys and girls. They're meant to be friends with everyone. But he was being taught that if you like boys and girls, you're bisexual. Fortunately, he has an engaged mother who was able to speak to him and explain it more fully. Another one at Marion Primary School went home after this. It's the health talks. Went home after his talk 2 years ago and wouldn't talk to mum, was feeling terribly uncomfortable. So she kept him home last year. He went again this year and he's come home again very disturbed and they can't get a word out of him about it. Mercy College in a prestigious private school in Mackay. Last year, a Year 8 student parent asked for a copy of the presentations and any associated workbooks that would be used so that she could make a decision about her daughter's attendance. They refused and said that copyright prevented them from sharing with the parents. Now, they're sharing with all the staff and all the children, so I don't understand that. A lot of these schools are giving parents websites that are impossible to negotiate and you can't find what's in them. So this child, fortunately, is homeschooling. But I have also had news this week that in the HPE lessons with homeschooling, they're teaching children how to access kids' helplines and other similar services in health in homeschooling. So I did speak to a teacher about 5 minutes before I came on here, and I love it when I hear teachers like this. A 6-year-old in this teacher's grade, little girl, transgendering to a boy, and this teacher has had the courage to go to the principal and say, I will not call that child by a male name. I will not do it. Principal did nothing. So teachers, they can't make you. They can't make you. Stand up. They cannot make you.
That led me into my next question. So why do you think more teachers are not actually standing up against this gender? Are they scared that they won't get a promotion if they stand up against this stuff?
No, I've been told that. When I was working, love what you're doing, but we're not doing it because we won't get a promotion. Well, you know what? Our kids are far more precious than your next promotion. It's far more precious. So, and, you know, they can't do anything if you refuse to do it. They might make life uncomfortable at school for a little while. Our kids are going to live with this forever.
Yeah. Got a couple of comments from some of our listeners here. Someone said, an assistant at Kinroy Library commented, it's not our job to censor. It is parents' responsibility what their children are reading.
We got that at Mackay too. Same thing.
And another one from one of our admins. 8 years ago, I was a teacher and reported a book in a primary school with hard rape content. Absolutely appalling. Do you have data from psychologists or psychiatrists that can be used to support people with their conversations? This absolutely disgusts me, and I don't have kids, but we know that mainstream people seem to react when mainstream services support a position. So would any of you like to comment on that one?
Well, I was hoping to get some from Raylene, but she's been busy yesterday and today, and I was unable to get it, but that's what I've been looking for. So hopefully, yes, and we'll put it on the channel.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get Raylene and a couple of other people that are involved in this. This is an ongoing topic, guys. We haven't by any means finished with this topic, and we are going to be following that up with Roland Crystal next week, who was being instrumental in getting one of those books off the shelves in Big W as well. So we might move across to you, Kim. You've been sitting there very quietly and patiently, so thank you. I'll give you a chance to have this question. What do you see as our most important role going forward? If we don't do anything, in your opinion, what's the likely outcome going to be?
Complete degradation of society. Absolutely complete. I think if nothing is done, then all boundaries have been crossed. I can't even begin to imagine. It will be anything goes. Children's innocence will be taken away. It already is being taken away. Confusion will reign into adult like we have never seen before. It is already happening. You have a look at some of these kids who have transitioned to the other due to the indoctrination of this, and they are now devastated. Some of them have got major mental health issues. They don't know who they are, or what to do, because there's nowhere to turn. They don't provide any solutions for the mess that they are creating here, let alone what this will open up society for, where pedophilia, as we know, is a large problem. That's going to become even more so a problem because it'll be accepted with the indoctrination of the way that they are rolling this agenda out. So what do I think? Complete degradation.
Thank you, Kim. Another one for you teens. What are parents meant to do when their children come home and identify as the opposite sex or as a cat, as we've heard?
Well, they need to be very careful, because we now have a lot of families across Australia whose children came home and did that. They would not affirm the change, and they were taken to court, they were gagged, and the children's services and police have taken their children. We've got a lot of families across Australia who don't know where their children are, and some haven't seen them for 5 to 7 years. So parents, be careful. I'm not saying to affirm them, but just be very, very careful. I wish I had an answer.
Now, teens, I want to ask you an honest question here, and I kind of know the answer to it, but I want you to affirm it really for our listeners, because I did ask them some questions before I invited you guys on. You probably heard me asking. It wasn't in a recent flyer that we all put out with that unacceptable content for children, and that was, do you know that children are using kitty litter in the classroom just like cats do? And people would say to me, really? Are you just like, is that just made up? Tell me, is that really going on?
That is going on. There are several schools in Mackay where I can tell you that's happening, where I've heard of schools where they actually put a saucer of milk out for the child at lunchtime. Why are they teaching them? If you're a cat, go home. Or here's a little mat, curl up there for the day and stay on the mat. Really? Why are they being taught? If they're cats, they're cats. You talk to Raylene Stokes for counsellors. If a little girl comes in and says, I want to be a boy, she is not allowed. No counsellor is allowed to discuss that. And counsellors who will not immediately affirm are no longer allowed to belong to the Australian Association of Psychologists or the Australian Counsellors Association. Even if they come in, and to quote Raylene, come in and say, I identify as a giraffe, the minute those words come out of the child's mouth, the counsellor has got to go forward as if the child's a giraffe. I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. Where is science-based, the evidence that's scientifically based? It's just insane.
Yeah, and when we asked that question about the kitty litter, it was also affirmed by Raylene that there was definitely a school here in Western Australia, and then one of our other tap admins also confirmed that there was a school in New South Wales that it was happening to as well. Just seen in one of the comments as well from one of our listeners, we were told that Ipswich Girls Grammar had kitty trays, though we've not confirmed it yet. Another question from our listeners for you guys: how does duty of care play with gender affirmation plans?
Well, it's not right now, is it? There is no duty of care. No. When it comes to what they are doing, how counsellors are doing, how teachers are handling it, what the restrictions are on the psychologists, there is no duty of care in this. When you can't discuss that with a child, it's cancelled immediately.
Another comment from our listener here. Jordan Peterson interviewed a retransitioned girl who regretted her transition. And Jordan Peterson said it was normal to experience gender dysphoria during puberty, and this makes it worse. Early puberty increases the dysphoria. So, yes, In regards to the giraffe comment, yes, refer them to a vet. Then giraffes don't need psychologists. Absolutely. Okay, so general question for any one of you. Not quite sure of what your spiritual or religious beliefs are. So how are religious organizations or churches complicit in pushing these agendas forward? So we might start with you, Bernard.
So just unmuting. Thanks, Nancy. So look, I'm Catholic. Take my Catholic faith pretty seriously. Look, I have a serious problem with the way the Catholic Church has approached these things in Australia. I think the Church's doctrine is very good, very sound, but it is not being taught in Catholic schools. I've had a lot of people ask me about different schools, Catholic schools, so across Australia and things that are going there. And basically my advice is be very careful sending your children to a Catholic school if you want them to keep the faith, because they're probably going to lose it. You need to look for schools outside the Catholic system that have a strong faith-based approach, probably. But look, the Catholic Church has gone woke, like everything else in society. Basically, it is a corporate arm of government. It exists to take government money and be a second arm of the state education system. It is not providing good schooling. And so these problems don't just occur in state schools, they occur in Catholic schools as well. It's very sad.
Well, it's happening in Holy Spirit here. That's a major high school, Catholic high school, where the boys are allowed to wear padded bras, but they're not allowed to have any facial hair. So the boys are allowed to pretend to be girls, but they're not allowed to be boys. So, you know, your church schools are no different. Some might be. Be careful. Be very careful.
Kim, do you have any comments on that one? Is that one you want to leave alone?
No, that's okay. I think what you'll find is most church organisations are complicit in this. A lot of times what we find and what we hear is that they will take passages from the Bible and twist it to suit this agenda. What does that do? That makes them feel okay about pushing it forward when it is not okay. Rather than teaching what the true meanings are of the passages in the Bible, they will take it, twist it, and indoctrinate. Most churches around the world are complicit and are pushing this agenda, period.
Excellent.
Well, I take my faith very seriously and I agree with every word. Where has the church been in the last few years? We haven't seen them stand up. We haven't seen them make a stand.
Yeah, I agree, James. Jodie says she'd love to see the entire zoo turn up at the school just for a day and let them see if they affirm that. Yeah, that would be interesting. We used to have, I remember dress up days at school where you could dress up as anything you wanted to do and you'd have a little parade around the quadrangle, you know. Maybe we could all dress up as animals and all pretend to be animals for the day. Who knows? All right.
Can I just add, sorry, Ange, can I just add a little bit more onto that with the religions? It's only very quick.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people are aware of this out there, but there is now a major push for a one world religion. Yuval Harari recently stated that they are in the process of rewriting the Bible using artificial intelligence. When you hear things like that, it sends shivers down your spine because you can guarantee that that Bible will be geared towards this agenda.
All right, I'm going to ask probably quite a controversial question. I know what the answer might be. For a lot of us would like to say it. Maybe we can't say it out loud, but I'm just curious to know from each of you, what would you like to see happen to the perpetrators who are actively pushing this agenda on our children? I know it's an uncomfortable question, guys, and, you know, we're pushing really hard. We're fighting against this. What do we want to see happen? Okay, Kim, what do we want to see happen to these people?
So I want to say this first. We as a society cannot do what they are doing and inflict violence. We have to find another way. I really like the idea of creating like a farm, call it a farm stay, where these perpetrators are put in, they've got an acre block They're given 3 months worth of food and seeds. So they either grow their own food and service the community. They're not accessible to anyone. They don't have contact with anyone. But they can service the community by growing food and providing food for them. If they choose not to do that, 3 months down the track and they run out of food, then that is on them. No one else has that responsibility to inflict anything upon them, but they have the choice to do that themselves and redeem themselves somewhat to themselves by providing service to community.
Excellent. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Can these people be rehabilitated? Can they be turned around? Can they be forgiven?
I believe the American government says that the pedophile is the only criminal that can't be reformed.
Interesting.
So my position, Ainsley, is pretty simple. There is a legal system. There are criminal codes. There are penalties for breaching the criminal code. Pretty simple. The police should be doing their job. The courts should be doing its job. People who commit crimes should face the penalty for their crimes. It's not difficult. The system is in place for it to happen. It just needs to be made to work. And I'm a big believer in upholding civilization, and I want to see our court system work on people who are breaking the law.
So perhaps our legal system needs a big overhaul as well in order for correct judgments to be sort of happening.
Well, it just needs people to do their job. The laws exist. The laws already exist. The jail's already there. The court building is there, and the judge is there, and the police prosecutors are there. They just need to start doing their jobs.
Yeah.
And they're not at the moment.
No, that's right. They're not. Speaking of legal cases and courts and whatnot, Bernard, we know that you're in the courts at the moment with your challenge for the books. We understand that the fees for attending court and representing yourself can be quite expensive. So, can people offer to help support you in that regard? And if so, where can they do that?
Thank you, Ainsley. So, I'm not in court yet, and I don't want to. I've got to get finalised with my legal team, and it is going to be finalised by Thursday. So, what I'll say is that if you are interested in helping, stay tuned to my website at bernardgaynor.com.au, and as soon as it's officially lodged in court, I'll let people know on that website. And you can sign up for a newsletter there. I'll let people know how they can help once I'm in court. I've got 2 days left. I'm waiting for my legal team to finalise the application. So visit my website, sign up for the newsletter, stay tuned, and I'll let you know how you can help once I'm in court officially. Excellent.
And guys, we have put that link to Bernard Gaynor's website on the chat, and we will put that in the replay as well. Someone says, why doesn't Australia have a register of sex offenders? I actually thought we did.
They do.
We do.
Yeah, I thought we did. Yeah.
But it's actually hard to get someone's name on it. If they don't go on automatically, you have to ask for them to be put on, and it takes quite an effort to get the name put on it.
Yeah. Aren't they protected by 99-year suppression orders? Is that how it works?
No.
That's how I thought it worked. Anyway, okay, so some call to action. So like this is all like, dreary and like such horrible stuff that we're talking about that is being inflicted upon our children and young ones today. Obviously, we don't want to lose hope. We want to give people say, oh, there's nothing we can do, blah, blah, but there's plenty we can do, right? So teams, we're just gonna go around the table, and I just want you guys to give us some call to actions of different things that our listeners can do in order to take even just that one small step to make change, like I said in my opening address, to make a difference on this particular topic. So we'll start with you, teams.
Okay, well, go to P&C. If you've got no children at school, and I was talking to a lady yesterday whose teenage daughter has just left school and she's transitioning, and she's going to start going to the local P&C, because behind everyone who's going to speak out, there are several who would like to. And start finding out the people who are believing the same as you, who are prepared to step out, but they just need a leader. Step out, do something, go to P&C. go visit the principal, but get a group around you and start to act as a group. Have a protest or display or whatever at the gate of the school, all go into the library. But when there's a number of you, it's amazing the courage that comes in numbers.
Excellent, teams. We'll go across to Bernard before I ask him a very special request. So, Bernard.
Thanks, Stacey. So it's pretty simple with the libraries. Go to your library, check out the books in the picture book section. When you find books that shock you, and you will, take photographs of them, write to your local counsellors. Hopefully that will get the books removed. Sometimes that is all it takes. You should also complain to the police and to the Office of Fair Trading, or the equivalents in other states who are there to look after, provide consumer protections for people. So make sure you complain to your counsellors and to the Office of Fair Trading, and that is the start to getting rid of these books. And make sure you take action, because unless you do, nothing will happen.
Excellent advice there, Bernie. Now, Kim, before I ask you for your call to action, I said in my opening address about the solutions, just like the New Brunswick did in, I believe it's in the Canada or in that area. Can you talk a little bit more about this and what they did that might provide some hope and encouragement for our listeners, as well as your call to actions, please?
Absolutely, and everyone should be encouraged by this. So the province of New Brunswick, at the start of the LGBTQI plus month, 32,000 children out of the 90,000 children stayed home. Now, this was a major wake-up call, and that's power in numbers. As a result of that, a group of parents have managed to defund the Liberal Party. They've managed to get all unacceptable content for children books removed from libraries and from school libraries. They got the locker rooms back to girls' lockers, boys' lockers. No physicians in the county of New Brunswick are allowed to talk to children about gender transition by themselves. They have 50 families who have gotten together, hired 5 criminal lawyers, and they are taking every single person who has been complicit in the rollout of this to court for criminal charges. So it shows you what we can do when we stand up together. Power is in numbers. It always has been. And that's what we need. We need to get this message out. We need parents. We need teachers. We need everybody to stand up together and move forward. So it's a bit of hope. And there's some more calls to action that if you'd like me to go through them.
Yeah, just very quickly, because we are running out of time, Kim. Yep, that'd be great.
Yep. All right. So in addition to Tine and Bernie's, come along, join the Unacceptable Content for Children Telegram page first and foremost. Join our bi-weekly Zoom meetings. We have the next one coming up next Monday, 7 p.m. We have a series of actions that are underway. We have letters that have been written and are available for you to send out to Australian government, Queensland government, ministers, schools, principals, councils, libraries, WEF, UN. So start writing letters to people at the top who are pushing this agenda, like the UN and like the WEF. Start forming action groups in your own town, as Tine said, but make it a regular thing. Come up with ideas. Share those ideas with the rest of Australia. Get on board with fundraising teams to help burn it out. Get on board with teams that can do unacceptable content, social media posts, so that we can move this across to the whole of Australia. Ask people what's going on. Ask your teachers. Talk to your schools. Talk to other parents. Talk to people who are homeschooling. Do all of these things. Get educated. That's the most important thing. Get educated. Join our action group, and let's move this forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. All right, guys. Well, we are out of time. As they say, knowledge is power, and it's been great hearing all this knowledge, guys. But what's more powerful is applied knowledge. So when you get this knowledge, you've got to actually do something with it in order for it to be empowering. Otherwise, it's purely just knowledge. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you, Tine, Kim, and Bernard, for tonight, for sharing with us all your wisdom and all the efforts that you guys have been doing as well around the nation. It's if we don't have people like you, I mean, who's going to fight for these children? So really, really appreciate being part of this with you. And thank you for being on the show this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed tonight's show, show some love in the chat before we close off. And we will get this replay up ASAP, because I'm very pleased to also say we are now up to date with every single episode of Triple Tap. It is on our Telegram channel, our YouTube channel, our Tap Program Updates channel, and on the Australia Project website. That was a mighty effort over the last fortnight. It is done. And so this one will be rendering the minute I get off this call. It'll be rendered so that anyone who's missed the call or would like to go back and watch it can actually do so. And apologies to anyone who did attempt to get on before and had the wrong link. Maybe they couldn't get on tonight. Share this around once it's up so that we can get this into the hands of all the parents out there and let them know what is really going on with our children. So once again, thank you, teams. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Bernard. And we'll see you next time on Triple Tap. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.